Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a while since we last hosted a webinar. A busy fall for us, and usually these webinars are a solo adventure most of the time for me. But today I have the pleasure to host Ingmar and Bram as our guests. So we'll have a lot of demos for you today. So I'll jump directly into Brad. And we'll talk a little bit about AppV and MSIX and how Advanced Installer and AppVentiX can help you get there. So if you don't know already, it's kind of a deadline rumoring around that Microsoft will bring AppV will be end of life in 2026. So if you didn't start evaluating your options, you should start as soon as possible after the Christmas cookies and so on. I'll delve into some, I'll start with some basic limitations around the conversions from AppV to MSIX, limitations that are part of the MSIX packaging tool from Microsoft, which I'm sure that many of you know. And then how I'll show you how Advanced Installer can help you, and then Ingmar and Bram will show you how AppVentiX can take the packages built by Advanced Installer and help you deploy them into your local or cloud infrastructure. So in most of the cases that we've seen in the last years with converting packages to MSIX, it doesn't matter if it's an AppV or MSI or an EXE or an MSI package. The most basic problems that we've seen, and we were quite surprised that Microsoft didn't handle correctly, and by design from the first version of the packaging tool, was handling shortcut configuration. And when I talk about shortcuts, I talk about shortcut arguments or working directory configurations. And then there are some particularities like external shortcuts and other type of shortcuts customizations, but those are more rare. So if you don't handle these cases very well, if you don't handle them at all, you might end up even with a case, with a scenario where less than 50% of your apps are ready for conversion, and you don't want to spend manual time to fix stuff like that. So I'll show you some demos on how you can basically automate the conversion of some of those packages. I'll show you the UI version and also a sample of the script that does the same thing from command line with Advanced Installer, and show you the things that you have to do manually, but in a much easier user interface and without having reducing the chance of errors that you would do using open source tools and a lot of scripting with the packaging tool from Microsoft. So I'll jump directly to the first problem where you have shortcuts, one or more shortcuts to the same EXE. That's a different problem. So if you have multiple shortcuts which target the same EXE from the package, the packaging tool needs some help to decide which shortcuts you want to keep in the package or not. Or if you want to add additional to actually keep all of them. So the first problem, the most encountered problem, is how do you handle shortcut arguments. And for this example, we have our classic VLC package for AppV, because it's a relatively small package and it won't waste us too much time during packaging. And here I'm launching Advanced Installer. As I said, now I'm showing the UI because it's easier to do this in a webinar. But the same things that I'm showing in the UI can be done with this script, which is basically calling Advanced Installer from command line, creating a new project, importing your package, building an MSIX from it, enabling digital signing, and so on. And we'll get back to Notepad a little bit later. So now we just create a new project from scratch. You can import your package. And let's go to our VLC package. And once you create this, once you import the package, you get a project in Advanced Installer that allows you to generate multiple outputs. Can be an AppV if you want to maintain an existing package. It can be an MSI or an EX or an MSIX package if you want to switch the package type. So in our case, we imported it and generated automatic an MSIX build. You can see that in builds page in advanced installer. Okay, so here I have a debug version which is moving a little bit slower. So please bear with me. Okay, so you see the builds configuration here, and let's go to application details view. And here you can see the shortcuts from our package which have been imported from the AppV package. And you see here some of the shortcuts have parameters for them, and you want these parameters to be automatically imported. You don't want to manually fix the shortcuts. If you import the package like this with the packaging tool, you have surprises or cases where you have the same target exe and you end up only with one shortcut in the MSIX package. And another issue that we've seen with packages that have multiple shortcuts, even to different exes, is that the folder from the start menu where those shortcuts are created is lost when you import the package in the packaging tool. So this is another thing that we've updated. So you don't have to manually specify it, or you can customize it if you want, but if not, we detect it automatically from the package and import that. And in this case, as in many cases, because shortcut parameters are not supported natively in MSIX, we use a custom version of the package support framework, and I'll come back to that in the following demos, because it's the package support framework is the only way to extend the capabilities of applications or to fix certain compatibility issues for applications package as an MSIX package. So once you have all of this set in the UI, if the import is as you want, or if you want to customize it, all you have to do is to enable digital signing for your package. Here I have some test certificates. You can create your own test certificate or use an existing certificate from an infrastructure. And then you just build a package and you get an MSIX package. Let's see if, okay, so I have uninstalled the previous version of the package. And this way you get to the package build for one of your tests to just to see it. As I said, when you want to automate this for multiple application, you just use our script. It's available. We have an article online on this, and we'll link it in the description of this recording when it's published. Or if not, just if you can't find it, just email us at support@advancedinstaller.com and we'll share it with you. Okay. And let's run this package and install it. Okay, so the package should create us 3 shortcuts, if I remember correctly, in the video LAN folder, and some of them should have shortcut parameters or LAN. I think one of them is launching VLC, skin. So it's using a different skin for VLC. We can try that one to see it's passing the correct parameter. And usually these configurations, you can find them in the manifest of your AppV package, and you would expect them to be in the same manifest of the MSIX package. But for some reason, I haven't seen a package from Microsoft that contains the support, even if I think almost 2 years ago, they publicly documented support for shortcut parameters into their documentation. The MSIX packaging tool still seems to ignore it, and other packaging tools too. So this is the classic VLC, and if you go and see here, we have the skin version, which should be launched with a different shortcut parameter. Okay, so obviously you'll need this option for different pre-configuration of your applications, but a different, a more important case of using a configuration for shortcuts is the working directory of your application. And we've seen, I've seen personally multiple applications which simply crash because the working directory is not set correctly, and or is not set at all. This happens because when you deploy an application package as an MSIX, the operating system automatically tells that application that its default working directory is system32 folder. And not all the applications behave nicely when they get that working directory as default. They expect their install folder to be their working directory, and they might be looking for a config file or some log file or trying to write something, and they fail because they cannot find that resource in there. So this part is the most important one. We automatically import this too, or if you have shortcuts inside of an MSI or EXE package that you convert to MSIX, we again import it from those shortcuts configurations. And these are basically the thing that will basically should be basic. I'm starting to repeat myself, and should get a lot of your packages up and running without any problems. Then there are more rare scenarios where you need to have external shortcuts in your application. So you want to target an EXE that's not part of your package, but you want to create a shortcut for it. Let's say maybe install some kinds of apps that communicate with each other and share resources and stuff like that. And or a typical example is where you have a shortcut to a browser like Edge, and you want to open the help of a certain URL with the help or the support line or something like that. And again, this is not supported in the package in the manifest of an MSIX package. And Microsoft recommends using for all kinds of scenarios like this, using the package support framework. So let me show you how it would mean to include the package support framework. So the package support framework is an open source project from Microsoft available on GitHub, which contains a PSF launcher, an EXE launcher, some DLLs depending on the library, on the platform that you plan to deploy your application, 42 or 64-bit, and then some configuration files that you need to currently manually write. And this is very error prone and time consuming, even for us, which when we play a lot with it, MSIX packages. Now, I've seen the preview version from Microsoft where they try to add some UI for configuring this. I doubt it. They have something for importing and automatically fixing packages, but we'll see this in maybe a year or so. They still have 2 years until the deadline, so I guess there's no hurry for them either. But you don't want to manually handle this fact. It's like you would create an MSI package using Orca, and that's not pleasant. So what we give you in advanced installer is just a quick option to say, hey, instead of a shortcut to an existing application, I want an external application into my package. And then you just specify the target application that you want. In case I have here, I have a path to Edge. And that's all you have to do. Additionally, maybe you want to say, I want Edge to launch some MSDN page, which eventually will turn up into a 404 because Microsoft likes to redirect all their documentation pages. And that's all you have to do into the package. Now you can build and run this package. Let me uninstall the old one until this one is building. And we should have, let's see it uninstalled. Okay. We should have an external shortcut to an application that's not part of the package now available. I didn't have to write any script or any configuration file or manually download files from GitHub and stuff like that. Advanced installer comes with built-in toolkit to handle all of these cases. We also import this. So if you have a shortcut to an external file into an AppV package, we detect as and import it automatically. So let's reinstall the package. Okay, so we have 2 more demos, and then I can pass it on to Ingmar and Bram to show them, so they can show you their deployment magic. Almost there. So until this one is installing, I can show you a little bit how the manifest of a package created with advanced installer is looking like. So the manifest is similar with the one that you know from AppV packages. You have application entries, capabilities, and so on. And the target executable for packages created with advanced installer, in many cases, it will be this one. So it will point to AIStop.exe, which is a binary built by us, modified at build time with configurations that you include in the project. And those configurations can include any additional configurations for shortcuts or file redirection fix-ups or registry fix-ups or any other kind of additional functionality or application. And in most of the cases, you will need it, unless it's a very simple application. And here, along our VLC applications, we also have the Edge entry point, which is launching Edge with a recent documentation page that I share with some colleagues. Okay, so now we have this one. And as I said, because Advanced Installer automatically includes this in the package, it will include this set stop, which actually is just a launcher. It's all it does is to launch your application and update its execution process to expand it and provide additional functionality, which is not available by default in the MSIX package. And you don't have to do it, and you can't do it because you don't have access to the source code of your application. Ideally, stuff like that would be handled by developers from the source code of their applications when it's an application that's maintained. But if it's the case that you don't have access to it, which is the case for most of you guys, you have to use the package support framework. Now, let's get back to our slides. So many open. Okay, this one. So with the shortcuts out of the way, you will have a decent percentage of your apps converted, and this should be converted automatically, as I showed you with that import script from us, because you don't want to spend precious time processing manually applications that should be handled without much issues. But then again, you start having applications which fall outside of the most common scenarios, and you get maybe an application that needs environment variables, or in some cases access to some registry file, or other kinds of scenarios where a different version of the package support framework is integrated by us, but we always try to actually hide the interaction with the package support framework to avoid additional confusion. So our paradigm is to use the same UI from Advanced Installer to create any type of package. So you have an UI where you specify the files and shortcuts, and those files and shortcuts can be used into MSI and MSIX or an AppV package. And we do the same for environment variables. So if we go back to Advanced Installer and search for environment page, this is the same view that somebody building an MSI would see. And all you have to do is to say, I want to create my new sample var, and say, I want to point to my installation folder and specify any configuration that you want to do here. And that's it. In the background, we insert the package support framework, you build the package, and your application has access to the environment variable that you have inside its MSIX container. So in this case, VLC doesn't need it, so I can't actually show you VLC using it unless we open a command prompt inside the container and list the environment variables available. But this is how simple it is to get these kinds of high-level constructs included into your package. And then there are, of course, the classic declarations that get included inside an MSIX package. Like here, we have a ton of file type associations and other type of declarations that you can easily add from the package. And in the rare case where something is not supported, you have a manifest editor that allows you to customize and validate any changes in the manifest that you do, much like you do with the table editor for an MSI. And now, on top of these high-level resources that we try to automatically integrate into the package, or give you an easy way to integrate it instead of maybe wasting hours on a package, you can do what I did in 5 minutes. And I urge you to try a demo and create an MSIX package with a packaging tool that does the same thing that I've done here, and see how many hours it will take you to build a similar package. And the last part of my demo is related around scripts and other kinds of fix-ups that you need to include inside of an MSIX package. We have a full webinar on this. I think it was from 2022, and we'll link that too in the webinar. So here I'll just give you a brief overview of what you can do in app compatibility. So whenever you have application compatibility issues with applications that maybe try to write in the install folder of your in its install folder, which is not permitted for MSIX packages, or maybe access a DLL that's not available, or execute a script, stuff like that. All of this can be done from the app compat view, which is our custom integration of the package support framework. So it's a fork, because we already had our own launcher before Microsoft announced the package support framework availability. And we forked the one from GitHub and then added additional functionalities, and of course a nice UI. So if you want to just execute a PowerShell script, I don't know if I have some scripts here that I can plug fast enough. I don't have anything. You should have a UI here, but let's say you want to do a file redirection for files that are in application folder, just specify the file pattern or stuff like that. And you can also specify where that file to be redirected, if you want to be redirected to a shared location or not, depending on the usage of your application. So most commonly is the part where you need to do file redirections. Sometimes we've seen applications that need to do entire folder redirection, and in some cases we actually do that automatically. So if we detect that you have files and folders defined in the package, so let's say you define them manually, or you import an existing package with something that you have in the user profile root, for example. I've seen some application writing directly in the user profile root. Those are not part of the visual file system of the MSIX container. And in that case, you need to redirect them. So Advanced Installer will prompt you to do that. And you can see that in our other webinar that I mentioned. But here, you need to, let me select this one. So, pardon me. Okay. You have the option to configure multiple fix-ups. And when you don't know what to configure, you have options to trace it. So basically, you just say, okay, I want to configure, like, I want full logging or just some light logging of why my application is crashing. And then you just hit the trace app button. And what it does in this case, Advanced Installer is building a temporary build of the project and installing it. But it's including in it some fix-ups for tracing the application, so you can easily see what's crashing and not, because it will display a log. So this tracing capability is actually something that's provided in the package support framework project from Microsoft. But again, it's very cumbersome to manually integrate it into the project and to analyze the log, then change a few things, build the package again, and do that all over again and restart, because as you know, debugging usually is 90% of the time of an engineering, and you want to optimize that as much as possible. So and with this, I'll close up my demos in just a few minutes, so we can have time for some more great demos from Ingmar. You might encounter situations where when you trace a package multiple times, the system might forget that it has uninstalled a package. So when it tries to reinstall it, it says that, hey, this application is already installed or not. It's something in its caching mechanism. It helps renaming the application, just change the name in the name of the application from package information view. And this helps it overcome that. So in cases where you see your application is running and now it's running a little bit slow because it's also logging events, here you will see highlighted events like file access, registry access errors, and stuff like that. And here you also see a summary with what we think is a failure. Or sometimes are false positive, sometimes are not. It's an art debugging these logs, but it helps you get started, and instead of just blindly trying to fix an application or trying to manually use process monitor and other external tools to debug it. So as I said, everything that I showed you in the UI can be automated. So once you go over the routine and understand how advanced installer works, you can say, let me create a script, add a loop around it, and then process multiple packages in the same way. So you don't have to manually import them. You just fine tune and tweak whatever changes you want in those packages. Okay, so with that being said, I'll hand it over to Ingmar so he can show you some more cool stuff around how you can take MSIX packages built with Advanced Installer and deploy them with AppVentiX, or even maybe fix additional stuff.
All right, thank you, Bogdan. So in the meantime, we have an upcoming section. We're going to demonstrate you how we can overcome the challenge of deploying MSIX applications and AppV in your environment. As an introduction, my name is Ingmar Verheij. I am a product manager at AppVentiX. Today, I'm joined by our lead developer and founder, Bram. So he's in the same call. If you have any questions during the webinar, again, feel free to type them in the question pane. We'll answer them at the end of the section. Perhaps we'll also do it live. So again, joined by Bram. Today we're going to talk about transitioning from AppV to MSIX. Right. So MSIX is the new Microsoft standard for delivering Windows applications, as it comes with a unique set of advantages. This is why you will see that core Microsoft applications, such as Microsoft Teams, are now offered as an MSIX. At its core, MSIX is a native Microsoft application format, so there's no need for any proprietary technology when you're using the application, and you're not bound to a subscription of a third-party software vendor to launch your applications. MSIX makes it possible to make your applications portable, so it's super simple to deploy, upgrade, replace, or remove your applications. Installations are reliable, clean installs are guaranteed, and since processes are isolated, both interoperability and security is increased. Now, MSIX is the best alternative for AppV. Also, keep in mind, again, the end of life of AppV. It has been announced quite some time ago. May 2026 might sound pretty far, but we all know that these transitions do take time. So now is really the time to start looking into that transitioning from AppV into MSIX or MSIX in general. So with AppVentiX, we make it super simple to deploy and update your Microsoft application packages in your environment. It is powerful yet lightweight deployment and management solution for AppV, MSIX, both native and through AppAttach, and we provide visual app masking management. Now, we've just seen a demonstration of the creation of MSIX applications using Advanced Installer. Now, once you have transformed your EXE or MSI applications into MSIX packages, AppVentiX can start delivering them to your users. Now, during the transition, you might want to run in a mixed environment with both AppV and MSIX. And again, with AppVentiX, that's just super simple, and it's also transparent for your users. So that's good to know as well. You can basically, on an app by app basis, do the migration. So we can deploy your applications to physical endpoints. That can be your modern Windows 11 workspace. It can be a more traditional Windows 7 desktop, but it can also be your VDI, SVC, or cloud desktops. Now, access to your applications is going to be granular, so you can limit your access to the application to, up to one user, a specific user if that's required. Typically, we of course see that's based on a group, but it's very granular compared to the options you'll get out of the box. Now we support a wide range of platforms. So Microsoft Azure Virtual Desktops, Cloud PC. We support Citrix, both on-prem and cloud. Same applies to VMware. And again, we support physical endpoints. So wherever you want to deploy your application packages, you can run that with AppVentiX. Again, it runs in a hybrid mode. So typically we see a combination of those environments. Some applications are deployed on modern Windows 11 laptops. Some users will go to an Azure Virtual Desktop, or maybe you still have an on-prem environment. For identity and access, we support your on-prem Azure Active Directory, your on-prem Active Directory, or a more modern Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. We don't require line of sight with your domain controller, but if you do desire, we can also run in a hybrid mode. So it really depends on your current situation, your future mode, and we can, transition with you onto that new delivery mechanism. Having said all that, I think it's time to have a look at the product and see what it really does. It's going to be a live demo. So let's see how that's going to go. If it doesn't work, I still have a backup on all of that. So in this demonstration, we're going to show you how AppVentiX helps you distribute your MSIX applications across your systems. We'll also dive deeper into how AppVentiX is helping you with the process of troubleshooting MSIX applications. Typically, that's especially helpful when you're transitioning into MSIX. You maybe have some complicated applications. We've seen, in the demo from Bogdan as well, there are some caveats when you transition from AppV to MSIX, so we can support that as well. Now, what you'll see here, it's a vanilla setup. No application packages are installed on this machine. Default installation of the AppVentiX central view. So that's our management console. And, the AppVentiX agent is also very simple. We're going to add the VLC application. You've just seen that application in Bogdan's demo. We're going to deploy that on this machine, and let's see how that's going to work. So first things we're going to do, we're going to open up the central view. Again, this is the management console for AppVentiX. And what we're going to do is going to check this specific machine. This machine has the agent installed as well, just for demo purposes. In the meantime, I'll also open up the start menu. So you can see that in the start menu at the bottom, there is no VLC installed yet, right? So it's pretty vanilla. AppVentiX is installed. We have advanced installer, and that's about it. What I'm going to do while this is loading, I'm going to the manage machine sections. This is where we, basically manage all machines, the agents where AppVentiX is running. These are the machines where we want to have our applications deployed. We're going to select a machine group. These are the Azure AD machines. So this is an Azure AD joined machine. And I'm going to run an inventory to see if any application packages are already deployed. And we've just seen the start menu. So not expecting any application. You can see here, no published MSIX items found for this user. If we go to manage content, this is where we will see the application repository. So applications created by advanced installer are placed on the repository, and we're going to see it right here. If we do a quick inventory check, we can see there are a bunch of applications, but no VLC yet. Now, AppVentiX is quite simple. We don't have a lot of requirements. In fact, all we need is a file server. So you can see here, I have a folder called VLC. I'm going to copy it to the repository for AppVentiX. Again, it's just a file server. We can use our on-prem Microsoft file server, can be Nutanix, can be NetApp, or if you have Azure files, that's supported as well. And that's the only infrastructure requirement we basically have. I've just refreshed, and you can see now that VLC is here. It's built by Advanced Installer, and we're now ready to start deploying this application. We deploy application using publishing tasks. So we publish an application. So we're going to click on Create over here. And that's going to show us a dialog. There it is, in which we can choose some options. For this demo, I'm going to keep it simple. All I'm going to do is I'm going to select a user group. So app group 1. I'm going to filter this down to Azure AD machines. As I just mentioned, typically we see these running in hybrid environments, both on-prem machines, cloud machines, physical machines. It's going to be a hybrid scenario typically. And if desired, you can also automatically create a published application. So we can create a published application in Azure AD or Azure AVD. It can be in Citrix, it can be in VMware. So these can be created. We read the content of the package. If you've just seen the application created by Bogdan, there's an executable called AI stub. So for every application, we can create a published application. If desired, you can change the icon. So this is all being read from that same MSIX container. So you can see all the icons which are in here, all the assets. I'm going to keep it default. In fact, I'm not even going to publish an application here. I'm just going to publish this app for now. Let's keep it simple. So the next thing we need to do is we have now published an application. It's assigned to all the machines in Azure AD. But the agent by default only refreshes its inventory during logon. So we want to force that inventory process. So for this demo machine, I'm going to click on invoke refresh cycle. And in the background, what's going to happen is that the agent is going to check again if there are any publishing tasks. It's going to pick it up. Let me open up a start menu so we can see what's happening. Currently, no VLC installed. It's going to pick it up. It's going to look if any publishing tasks are available, and then it's going to automatically start installing that. So you can see now VideoLAN and the VLC media player is available. And this is all near real time, right? So if we are in a hurry or we are testing, all we have to do is invoke the refresh cycle, and very quickly we can start launching applications. Nice to know to see what's happening in the background. So for every machine, we can run an event inventory. What it's going to show us is basically, all the details of what AppVentiX is doing in the background. This is going to give you basically what's stored in the event log, and it's going to show you all the activities which is happening whenever there's a refresh cycle, when it logs on, and it's going to give you a lot of understanding of why AppVentiX is doing what it does, right? So it's going to check for new applications. Are there new publishing tasks available for this machine? Did it already find perhaps an existing application? So you can see it's browsing through all of these steps. So it's really helping you understand the process. It's also helping you in troubleshooting, even though it's super simple. Anyone can deploy an application with AppVentiX. Sometimes it doesn't goes as planned. This is where you can see what is happening. So a couple of steps, and you see at the end, successfully registered MSIX application VideoLAN VLC. So we've seen the application. It's here. It's in the start menu. If we launch it, well, it's going to launch VLC player. I hope this is not for VLC. I think it's going to launch VLC. And in the meantime, I'm going to launch the AppVentiX agent. So the AppVentiX agent or basically comes with an application. It's going to help you. Okay, so this is not a best demo. Something is wrong with my security. Oh, well, there it is. So yes, it launched. And I'm going to check why Defender is bugging me right now. Launch the application. All good. So it comes with an application. It's going to gain you insights into the state of this specific machine. So especially when you're troubleshooting this one, you can do a lot of things from central view, the management console. If you're on this machine, you can also start troubleshooting from this specific machine. This is where if we click on MSIX, we can actually see the applications which are deployed for this specific user. I launch it as a user, not as an admin. So we can see all the applications which are published here. So only one, we've just deployed VLC. And what's great is that we can actually do some activities here. We have some very commonly used actions which are useful when you're troubleshooting. Of course, we have the launch application feature. It reads the manifest, and you can launch every item in the start menu that you've just seen. If we launch the application, same thing as we've just seen when we launch from the start menu, it's just going to launch that application. One thing that I want to show you at a later stage is what you're going to do when an application is broken or when a package is broken, when something has changed in the application that you can no longer repair. So whenever VLC launches, I'm going to make some changes and I'm going to show you a repair function. And basically what that repair function does is reset that package to a vanilla state. So whenever it came clean out of the box, that's a state where we want to return it from. As it's still launching, I'm going to take it at a later stage and hopefully going to demonstrate it over there. One of the features which I think is very, very useful is package details. So it's going to give you all the information, all the details about this package on your machine. It not only gives you all that publisher name, the version, package name, but it allows you to open up this specific container, right? So these are all the details, all the files that are associated with this application. So from this machine, you can open up the manifest file, for instance. You've just seen it in a demonstration from Advanced Installer. This is the same manifest file, so you can see if it's the right version. Hey, what was configured? Why doesn't it behave in the exact same way as you were expecting? So a lot of details in here. You can browse the virtual file system. So everything is available from here. This is super useful when you are troubleshooting an application. You can also start using, well, commonly used admin tools. So especially when you are, again, troubleshooting this, you can launch PowerShell. You can launch PowerShell in the context of this specific application because, as I just mentioned, one of the benefits of MSIX is it runs in a container. It's isolated. So this increases security, this increases compatibility and interoperability of those applications. But if you want to go into that container, then this is especially useful. So you can see here, if I go to see VLC, I can quickly see the content of this of the virtual file system in this container. I can open up the registry. If I would do the same thing outside of the container, let me go and launch PowerShell here. Well, to command line. You can see there is no video LAN, there is no VLC because everything runs in a container. So working on troubleshooting applications using AppVentiX is super simple. It really allows you to do a lot of those things. The same blue icon I just clicked when I was refreshing the agent, running a new inventory, can also be done from the agent. So depending on what you're working on, you want to do this from central view, the big management console. You can even do the repair from that same management console. So when you're supporting users, everything can be done remote. If you are on this client machine, all the details are available and you can start troubleshooting from this side. Now my application didn't launch, so let's assume I just didn't click right and I'm going to launch it again. And hopefully the demo guys are with me and they're going to show me that the VLC is actually launching. Nope. So this is unfortunate. You have to take my word
Microsoft
for it.
Defender has other plans for you today.
Yes, Defender is not with me today. You have to trust me on this one. It would launch VLC, and we can do a repair. So last stage, typically in lifecycle management. So not only do we deploy and do we do updates, super simple in the same process as you've just seen. We can actually run applications side by side. So we see these in organizations where they receive a new version from their vendor. We can run it side by side, or they need to test two versions side by side. Because it runs in a container, we can easily deploy that side by side, the benefits of MSIX. The last stage of lifecycle management is, well, removing the application. We no longer need it, either because we said goodbye to the application as a whole, as an organization, or because this user no longer requires this application, perhaps it's transitioned into another role, we need to start removing it. So we have a publishing tasks. You can see here there's a show icon next to VLC, which means there is an existing publishing task. If we click on show, we can see all the publishing tasks. Because this is a simple demo, it's only one. In larger organizations, you will see multiple because you deploy to AVD, deploy to physical, etc. So we're going to remove it because this user no longer needs VLC. Also because, well, Defender is not on my side today. And we're going to do the same thing as we've just done. We're going to invoke a new refresh cycle. And we're basically going to force the agent to check the publishing task again and do a clean install. So we're going to click on the blue icon here. That's going to trigger a remote cycle. I'm going to open up the start menu so you can see what's happening. It's still here. Within a couple of, let's say, a couple of seconds, it's gone. The great thing about this is it leaves no traces behind, right? Everything is just happening out of the box, super simple, super clean. What's also very interesting to see or to know is that the agent only requires access to a file server. There are no other proprietary ports, so there's no complex firewall communication required. It's just access to a simple file share and using the technology that you want. I'm quickly going to run a machine inventory as well. If you are not familiar yet with the process of MSIX, basically there are two stages. It is staging an application, means it's ready for the machine, and then it's registering an application. When you register an application is available for the user. It's still staged on this machine. So if another user comes here, wants to access the application, it's actually pre-cached. So it's going to be super fast. We can actually pre-cache those applications if you configure. So on larger Citrix environments, VMware, AVD, we typically stage all the applications so that whenever a user logs in, it's available instantly. I'm going to remove it because I've just mentioned that you can deploy MSIX native. This was a typical native MSIX application. Comes out of the box as you've just seen it created by Advanced Installer. Especially in AVD, we see a lot of AppAttach because it's real-time delivery. We make it super simple to make a native MSIX application into an AppAttach application. So all we have to do is pick a typical MSIX application and click on Convert to AppAttach. I should have run this as an admin. Basically, AppAttach is a disk format. So it is mounting a disk as part of your session host, and then that application is going to become available. It has the same benefits as native MSIX, except it's a different delivery mechanism, currently mostly being used by AVD. But I'm going to show you that you don't need AVD to actually start using AppAttach. So what I'm going to do once this is loaded, I'm going to convert the MSIX application, native MSIX, into an AppAttach. That's a disk format, which is why I need to launch this as an admin. And I'm going to show you right now that currently it is not deployed as MSIX AppAttach. Going to disk management. And if I check disk management, you can see, typical virtual hard disk. There's a CD-ROM, again, virtual, and that's about it. So let's open up manage content. Run an inventory so we can see what MSIX applications are available. Take the same VLC application we've just seen. Going to click on AppAttach. You can change the disk type if you desire. By default, it's VHDX. We are transitioning more into the default of SIM, but for now, I'm going to keep it default and I'm going to convert it into a VHDX. So what we'll do is completely automated is mount that disk. We're going to build a virtual hard disk for you. We're going to transform all the content of the MSIX and then make sure that this application is going to run. This is taking quite a while. So in the meantime, what I'm going to show you is that this is going to run on any basically modern Windows machine, at least Windows 11, probably previous versions as well. It's nearly done. Okay, it says package converted completely. We're going to keep that MSIX application for you, right? It's going to move it into a backup folder. So it's still there, but we are ignoring contents of the backup folder because you've just migrated it. You can see it's now MSIX AppAttach. So we recognize the application type. If you've watched this correctly, you've also seen we have AppV in here, but we are focusing on MSIX right now. I'm going to repeat what I've just done. So instead of deploying a native application, a native MSIX, I'm going to deploy a AppAttach application. Same app group, just because it works. I'm going to deploy to Azure AD machines because I know my test machine is joined in Azure AD, Entra ID, I should say by now. That's the new name. I'm going to invoke a new refresh cycle. And I'm going to check the start menu again because this is going to show me what's going to happen. And now basically the same process is going to happen. AppVentiX agent is going to rerun. It's going to check if there are any publishing tasks. And in the background, it's going to mount a disk instead of opening the MSIX file. You can see from an end user perspective, same thing. It's just an application. But the way we deploy this is different. So depending on how you want to deploy your MSIX applications using native or AppAttach, same for the end user, but for you, it's very different. If I reopen disk management, you can now see, hey, there is a new disk attached. So this is going to show you that this is actually AppAttach. And really, that's how simple it is to deploy and distribute, manage your applications using AppVentiX. It's super simple. AppV, MSIX, both and native and AppVentiX. And with that, I think it's time to go to the questions and switch back to you, Bogdan.
Yeah, so we'll have a brief and have a look over the questions together. So until you get the chance to uh, read the AppVentiX related questions, I can cover a few of them. So one of them, which I actually marked accidentally as I want to answer live because I actually wanted to type the answer, was the question came from an anonymous attendee and says, what is the equivalent command for publish AppV client package global? So this is a question that we've seen many times. People want to install MSIX packages per machine, and the default is per user deployment with MSIX packages. Microsoft has a PowerShell commandlet. It's called add app provision package. And if you just search Google install MSIX per machine, you'll find an article from our website, which I cannot paste right now because I marked the question as answered. You'll just find an article from our website with examples on how to install the MSIX package per machine. So there is an option to do this. Two more questions that two or three that were answered by Bram in writing text. So I'll just repeat them for folks. Is adding the external app similar to running AppV switch? And as Bram said, it's quite similar. The app script or command line will launch inside a container. There is a PowerShell command that starts this process inside a container. It's basically probably the same PowerShell command line that you guys use in the troubleshooting area, and we use in our own free troubleshooting tool called Hover. It's called invoke command in the desktop package. It's standard from Microsoft, and this way you can launch an exe inside a package, be it for troubleshooting, as Ingmar showed, or just the external applications, as it is the case here. Next question. Microsoft application. Can we deploy MS Visio or MS Project or anything from the MS suite as MSIX? And if you didn't find out so far, Microsoft is still working on this. They haven't released a schedule for when Office will be available as an MSIX. Hopefully that will be soon. Currently we have the MS Teams application. I think it was released in the last month or so. And there are other Microsoft applications, I think Power Apps or some other applications from their suite of business applications are packaged as MSIX too, but not Office. There is one more, but it's related to AppVentiX. So I'll let you take over the rest of the questions, whichever you.
I saw in the questions, currently I have Advanced Installer. Do I need to get AppVentiX as well? Well, you don't have to. Of course, that's up to you, depending on where your requirements are. If it's about deploying applications in your organization, I think AppVentiX is a great fit. An Advanced Installer, of course, is in creating the application package. Of course, we run completely independent. There's no requirements to get AppVentiX when you use Advanced Installer. Highly recommended, of course. But that's preaching for the choir. Let's see. Could AppVentiX replace Configuration Manager? In other words, can you deploy MSI, XE, and PowerShell scripts? So I think it's twofold. Yes, I definitely think that AppVentiX can replace Config Manager for deploying applications. Config Manager, just like Intune, is a device manager solution, right? MDM. So, and that's not what AppVentiX is aiming. So typically what we see is that organizations have a hybrid configuration of using Intune for their device management, setting up the policies, using autopilot, all those kind of things. And I'm answering with Intune because Intune basically is a successor of Config Manager. And deploying MSI, EXE, PowerShell scripts. No, that's definitely not what AppVentiX is here for. And we basically recommend deploying MSIX applications because they run in a container. If you really want to deploy MSI and EXE files, so like unattended setups, then that's probably best done with a solution such as Config Manager and Intune. But I think you should definitely look into, leveraging the benefits of MSIX.
Yeah, and I think the big advantage for AppVentiX comes when you get to MSIX AppAttach, and the fact that you enable deployment of MSIX AppAttach packages on-premise machines and without requiring users to configure an AVD and handle all of that. Basically, two-step migration. Once you need to learn MSIX, and then you also need to learn to manage AVD. Maybe you don't need it; just want to do it locally. And we've had AppV streaming locally since the beginning, so I don't see why we shouldn't have it the same for MSIX AppTouch. And this is the part that I like the most about AppVentiX.
I agree. And it's built into the OS. So that's super simple as well. MSX is a native technology from Microsoft. It's part of Windows 10, it's part of Windows 11, so it's probably already there. And also the configuration of the MSIX is also part of AppVentiX. So you don't need any GPOs, no nothing. Everything is managed through AppVentiX, so that's super simple. I do see another question. Is any client required or certificate on the user machine to install on Windows 10? So MSIX does require certificates to basically digitally sign those applications. AppVentiX actually deploys those for you. So whenever there is a certificate, which is not a publicly available digital signature, of course you can just sign it with any trusted authority, and then there's no need to deploy certificates. But if you use your own self-signed certificate, AppVentiX automatically deploys this for you. So all you have to do is put it in on the same content folder, basically on the file share, and we will make sure that it gets deployed on those machines that require it. So it's super simple again. I think the last one is a good question for you, Bogdan.
Yeah. So the last question is, can we pin a shortcut deployed by an MSIX package? So natively, there is no support for doing this. We've had a few questions from other customers from this, the same that we had the question with people that wanted to create a shortcut on the desktop, and that is possible. But for pinning a shortcut, we currently don't have an option implemented. It's not because we can't, it's because there was low demand from the customers, and usually Microsoft doesn't recommend pinning shortcuts. They didn't recommend it for MSI shortcuts in the past too. In the end, we gave up and we succumbed to the requirement that our customers. And so for MSI shortcuts, you can do that with Advanced Installer, but not for shortcuts inside created by an MSIX package at the moment. So now you can have shortcuts that have shortcut arguments, working directories, group them in shortcut folders, external shortcuts, and desktop shortcuts. If we had some cases in the past that customers needed to create a desktop shortcut, and you can't do that either without using the PSF.
I see one last question. I did notice we're at the top of the hour, but perhaps I can answer this one quick.
Yeah, yes, of course.
The question is, so if we had laptops and wanted to deploy applications to them, would you say use Intune or simply use AppVentiX and AppAttach to deploy the applications? So I think, yes, I would recommend AppVentiX if you want to deploy MSIX applications. It is implemented in Intune, except for the removal. So there are quite some, it's basically a very basic implementation of deploying MSIX. So you're not getting all the granular control as you would get with AppVentiX. And again, it's, minimal barrier to start using AppVentiX. I would not recommend AppAttach, to be honest, on laptops, assuming a laptop can be offline. It is roaming, and AppAttach is a disk. So if you lose connection to that disk, you'll lose access to the application. I would highly recommend just use native MSIX for that, because it has a built-in mechanisms to cache that on the machine. So I would definitely say, okay, yes, go with AppVentiX and deploy it with MSIX, and then it's going to work perfectly. If you need to pre-stage it because your users are gonna going offline for a while, traveling, going offshore, you can pre-cache them if you want. So we can configure it once, hand out the laptop, and off you go. So it's super simple.
One more question. And
What
then we're closing.
What scenario does AppAttach work better over MSIX? So I would assume that's a native MSIX. AppAttach is also MSIX. I would assume whenever there is offline use or there's unstable connectivity, so whenever access to the disk is not consistent, then definitely I would say MSIX. You also need to realize that once you have like if you have a session host in AVD and you have multiple users, once that disk is mounted, you need to reboot your machine in order to start replacing that disk. So that's not the easiest way of upgrading your application. So there are some benefits using AppAttach because of your real-time delivery. I would argue if you pre-cache a native MSX application, it has the same benefits. So then it's finding the balance between what AppAttach gives you and what MSX natively gives you. But again, it's disk mounted.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I guess the additional advantage of AppAttach is that if you have an infrastructure where multiple users are using the same device, let's say kiosk users or managing a set of franchises for McDonald's, and different users log in on the same machine, which have access to different apps, then you would prefer something like AppAttach over locally installing all those apps on that machine. So it depends on the type. If it's the same user that's logging in on the same machine and nobody else is using it, and the frequency of updating those apps is very rarely, then you could just go with locally installing MSIX, and it's you don't lose anything. This one, I don't know. How often do they release the FOD driver? Do you guys know it?
So I was hoping you would know what the FOD driver stands for. If
I'm
that's
not
the
sure.
filter driver, if it's a filter driver, we're not using any filter driver. So again, we're leveraging Microsoft technology. It's built into Windows. So whenever Microsoft is updating that agent, that's part of the same release cycle. We have no filter driver, so it's
exactly. So any updates to MSIX, the container, because probably this is what you guys are referring to as a filter driver that you had with AppV. So the container for the part of the system that manages the MSIX container is just updated with every major release of Windows. So when they do securities, like 2 years ago, I think they added support for Windows services inside of an MSIX package. Kind of support. It's not fully featured, but it works in some scenarios. And they delivered that via a Windows update and other increments like that. So it's no separate deployment, no separate tool that you can update on your own. So assuming you'll stay on one of the latest releases from the 18 months periods of updates from Microsoft, usually customers move faster than Microsoft when they need to solve a problem. The problem is with Microsoft doesn't want to solve them as fast as we want to. Okay, so those were a lot of great questions. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have more questions, you can follow up over emails with us at support@advancedstart.com or just post them in the comments of this video. We'll share this on YouTube in probably next week when the recording will be processed by our colleagues. And join us for our next webinar and let us know how things are working for you guys. Bram, Ingmar, thank you for the great demos.
Yeah, you too.
It was great seeing you again. And next year we have to hold another one to practice our skills of sharing the screen.
We'll do that.
Live demos.
Yeah. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.